The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow on the quaint town where Emma lived. It was a beautiful day, the kind of day that every bride dreams of on her wedding day. Emma was no exception. She had been planning her wedding for months and was excited to finally marry the love of her life, Michael. But Emma's excitement turned to horror when she received a letter from a man named Richard, claiming to be her long-lost brother. Emma had been adopted as a baby and had never known anything about her biological family. Richard said that he had been searching for her for years and had finally found her. Emma was stunned, but also curious. She agreed to meet Richard and find out more about her past. When Emma met Richard, he seemed nice enough. He was tall and handsome, with piercing blue eyes and a charming smile. Emma couldn't help but feel drawn to him. They talked for hours, and Richard told her about their shared past. He said that they had been separated at birth, and that he had been searching for her ever since. Emma was shocked, but also thrilled to finally have a sibling. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Richard got to know each other better. They talked on the phone every day and went out for coffee and meals. Richard was charming and attentive, and Emma found herself falling for him. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help it. Richard was everything she had ever wanted in a man. As the wedding day approached, Emma began to feel uneasy. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. She tried to talk to Michael about it, but he dismissed her concerns and told her not to worry. But Emma couldn't help but worry. She began to have nightmares about Richard and started to feel like he was watching her every move. On the day of the wedding, Emma felt sick to her stomach. She had a sinking feeling that something terrible was going to happen. As she walked down the aisle, she saw Richard sitting in the front row, staring at her with an intense gaze. Emma tried to ignore him and focus on Michael, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Richard was there to claim her as his own. During the reception, Emma caught Richard watching her from across the room. She tried to avoid him, but he seemed to be everywhere she turned. As the night wore on, Emma began to feel more and more uneasy. She tried to talk to Michael about it, but he was too busy partying with his friends to pay attention to her. As the night came to a close, Emma found herself alone with Richard. He cornered her in a dark corner of the reception hall and told her that he loved her. Emma tried to push him away, but he was too strong. He kissed her roughly and told her that they were meant to be together. Emma tried to scream, but Richard covered her mouth with his hand. She struggled against him, but he was too strong. He told her that they were brother and sister, and that they belonged together. Emma felt sick to her stomach. She couldn't believe that she had fallen in love with her own brother. Just then, Michael burst into the room. He had been looking for Emma and had heard her screaming. He saw Richard on top of her and flew into a rage. Michael attacked Richard, punching him repeatedly until he was unconscious. Emma was traumatized by what had happened. She couldn't believe that she had been so blind to Richard's true intentions. She felt sick and disgusted by what had almost happened between her and her brother. Emma and Michael decided to postpone their wedding. They needed time to heal from what had happened and to decide if they still wanted to get married. Emma knew that she needed to confront Richard and find out why he had come back into her life after all these years. She arranged to meet him in a secluded park, hoping to get some answers. When she arrived at the park, Richard was waiting for her. He looked different now. His eyes were cold and calculating. Emma could see the madness in his gaze. "Emma, I know that you're still confused and upset," Richard said, his voice cold and sinister. "But I promise you, I did it all for us. We were meant to be together, and nothing can change that." Emma backed away from him, feeling her heart racing with fear. She had never seen Richard like this before, and she didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Richard lunged at her, grabbing her by the arms and pulling her close. Emma struggled against him, trying to break free, but he was too strong. "I won't let you go," Richard snarled. "We belong together. You're mine, Emma." Just then, Michael appeared out of nowhere, wielding a large branch as a weapon. He charged at Richard, hitting him with all his might. Richard stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. Michael hit him again and again, not stopping until Richard was lying on the ground, unmoving. Emma watched in horror as Michael turned to her, his eyes cold and distant. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice low and menacing. "We'll figure out what to do next, but we can't stay here." Emma didn't know what to do. She was still in shock from the events that had just transpired, and she felt like she was in a nightmare. Together, Michael and Emma fled the park. their minds reeling with questions and fear. They knew that they couldn't go to the police, that they needed to handle this on their own. But as they ran through the dark streets, they couldn't shake the feeling that Richard was still out there, watching them, waiting for his chance to strike again.